have people that say calling oneself Hanafi or Shafi or connecting themselves to any mazhab is causing a divide, as warned in the Quran. Is this true? And if it's not, then how can we answer them? The answer to that is pretty simple. The Ummah was divided even when we had these different schools of thoughts. To follow a school of thought is not something that divides the Ummah. Because if you look at our Salaf al-Salihin and how they followed this, following the school of thought by some people in this day and age is indeed something that breaks the unity of the Ummah. Why? Because they follow the school of the thought in the manner that I just explained, where they go crazy and start looking down upon people that follow a different school of thought. We can have different opinions and still coexist as brothers. You have different opinions in every matter of daily life. I've asked one of you to go to London. So you've taken two different routes. But you've both got to London. Why should you then differ? Why should you then differ? I've asked two of you to come to London. One of you took one route. The other one took the other route. You both reached London. Why should one have a go at the other? Because what the first person did was correct, and what the second person did was correct. All the four methods that we have are correct. Because if you look at the sources of all four madhabs, the Hanafi school of thought, the Shafi school of thought, the Maliki school of thought, and the Hanbali school of thought, all the sources of all four schools of thought are the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is a unanimous opinion, agreed by every scholar in Islam, and has always been the opinion of every scholar that we class as a scholar in Islam, that the sources of all four madhab is exactly the same thing, the Quran and Sunnah. Then you would ask as individuals, and many people ask this, the question thereafter is, why do you have different opinions? Straightforward. Humans are different. You will always get different opinions, not just in the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in what you call secular things. You will always get more than one opinion. And the reason you get different opinions is because people are different. People are different, their natures are different. Some people are very cautious. Some people are very lenient. Some people are in between. Let me give an example. Some of you dressed up in jumpers and trousers. I haven't got one on. I don't wear one. Not because it's not permissible. It's permissible. But I just don't wear one. Why? Because I'm a very cautious man. For a man in deen, I believe, libasul taqwa, the clothing of taqwa, is what a person in deen, that preaches deen, that's a role model for others, this is how he should dress. So that's just my opinion because of being very cautious. You've taken a lenient opinion that it's halal. If it's halal, one can do. But none of us are different. So we have different opinions as a result of different understandings. People are different. People are strict. People are cautious. People are lenient. And at the same time, the jurists, the fuqaha, have different principles. As a result of their principles which have been derived from the Quran and Sunnah, one faqih, one jurist may have said, okay, this is halal, whilst the other one had said this is haram, based on their principles. And at the same time, if we look at the hadith of Rasulullah, and this is a talk in its own, the narrations are different. And further, if you look at the Arabic language, the Quran and Hadith are in the Arabic language. Now, if you look at the Arabic language, one word can have many meanings. So sometimes what has happened is, one faqih, after analyzing the Quran and Hadith, has taken one meaning of that particular Arabic word, And another faqih, after analyzing the same Quran and Hadith, has taken another meaning of that particular word. And sometimes in the Arabic language, one word can have two opposite meanings. So if you take one meaning, you'll have a different meaning. And if you take the other meaning of the word, you'll have a completely different meaning. For example, in the verse of the Quran, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَزْعَزْ. The word has two completely different meanings. أقبل, أدبر. Akbar, to come forward, to retreat. So if you take the meaning of the word after analyzing it, to come forward, your meaning will be different to the person who, after analyzing this verse of the Quran, takes the meaning adbar, to go back. So this is how we get different meanings. But if you look at the source of the schools of thoughts, the source is the Quran and Sunnah. And because of this, all four mazhabs, in my opinion, are correct. And thus, if somebody is a Shafi'i, he should not look down upon a Hanafi. But he should respect the views of the Hanafi and live with him as a brother. And a Hanafi should respect the views of a Shafi'i and live with him as a brother. You know, another thing that I want to bring to your attention is, in the Haram, in Masjid al-Haram, you will have all sorts of people. You'll have a Hanafi there, next to him you'll have a Shafi'i there, next to him you'll have somebody else there, next to him you'll have somebody else there, and this thing never arises. Nobody looks down upon the other person, and this does not break the brotherhood of the Muslims. But okay, if you look at the different opinions, according to the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, اختلاف أمتي رحمة, that the difference of opinions of my ummah is a mercy. So the different opinions that we have in the ummah is supposed to be a mercy for the ummah. Why? Because if the need ever arises for a mufti to give fatwa according to the ruling of another imam, he can do so because that opinion is there. And if you look at history, the likes of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was known as Umar al-Thani, the second Umar, he and many others expressed this, that had the Sahaba not differed, then the Ummah would be in difficulty. Why? Because if there was only one opinion, the people would have to stick to that one opinion. And if the people did not stick to that opinion, then the people would go against the Sunnah of Rasulullah. They would be regarded as going against the Sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Thus, it's a good thing that the Sahaba differed. Because if one Sahaba is saying, this was the practice of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and another Sahabi is saying, if this was also the practice of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, for the Ummah it is easy. They can act upon this practice of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they can also act upon the other practice of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A final question that may arise for here, and it arises with many youngsters. The thing that we need to remember is that the opinions that have been expressed by the different imams, they are all correct. Though you may say there could only be one correct answer. They are all correct. If I was to say to somebody, hold their nose, now somebody after thinking, let's say this was a difficult thing. Somebody thought for hours, and he came out with this. Would he have held the nose? He would have. Would you say he was wrong in the order that I gave him? No. Because he held his nose. Another person, after full research, held his nose like this. Put his hand the other way and held his nose. Would you say he was wrong in the order that I gave him? That's a different thing. One is better than the other. And more acceptable. But he has carried out my command. So the fuqaha, when they derive their opinion, they derive it after research, after ijtihad, what we call ijtihad. And according to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is authentic, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself has said, إذا اجتهد الحاكم فأصاب فله أجران وإذا اجتهد فأخطأ فله أجر واحد. Okay, when a mufti, a faqih, a jurist makes ijtihad, he possesses that much knowledge to derive the laws from the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasulullah. He possesses that much knowledge and he derives the laws and he gets it right. Prophet ﷺ said that he will have 2 rewards. And if he gets it wrong, after possessing that knowledge and after trying his utmost best and after analyzing all the verses and the hadith on that subject, he gets it wrong. He does not get it right. Nabi Kareem ﷺ did not say he was wrong and he will be sinful. Nabi Kareem ﷺ said, فَلَهُ أَجْرٌ وَاحِدٌ. Instead of 2 rewards, this person, after analyzing everything with his knowledge, he will only get 1 reward. So in the light of this hadith of Rasulullah, we say, all the opinions that have been expressed by the Imams, the opinions that came through ijtihad, they are all correct because Nabi Kareem ﷺ considered them to be correct. So today we say, okay, what do you call it? These things break the unity of the Ummah. Let me just give you a few examples of the Imams themselves. The only people that are using these things to break the unity of the Ummah are the Muslims of the 21st century. Let me give you an example of the Imams themselves. Yunus ibn Abdul A'la, if I remember correctly, was one of the senior students of Imam al-Shafi'i. And he would debate with Imam al-Shafi'i nearly everything. Once he had a debate with Imam al-Shafi'i, and after the debate, the munazara, the mubahasa, they went their own ways. Imam al-Shafi'i met Yunus ibn Abdul A'la on another occasion. And he held Yunus ibn Abdul A'la's hand. And these were the words of Shafi'i, which every Muslim should write on his heart and never forget. He held his hand and said to Yunus, "Oh Yunus, is it not right that you and I still remain as Muslim brothers, even though we have never agreed upon a single thing?" Can you imagine? Yunus ibn Abdul A'la is a senior student of Shafi'i. They've never agreed upon anything. Every time they've had a debate, Yunus had his own opinion. Imam al-Shafi'i, who's the teacher, has had his own opinion, is saying to his student, "Oh Yunus, even though we can't agree on anything, we should still remain as Muslim brothers under one another." Such was the respect that Imam al-Shafi'i gave to Imam Abu Hanifa, who was the founder of another school of thought. That Imam al-Shafi'i would say with regards to Abu Hanifa, الناس عيال في الفقه على أبي حنيفة. When it comes to Islamic jurisprudence, people are dependent on Abu Hanifa. Such was the respect that he gave to him that Sharani relates in Al-Mizan, in the book Al-Mizan, that on one occasion Imam al-Shafi'i goes to visit the grave of Abu Hanifa. Now Imam al-Shafi'i was of the opinion that Qunut, which the Hanafis read in Witr, in Isha, should be read in Fajr. And the Shafi'is read it in Fajr. When he went to visit the grave of Abu Hanifa, that morning in Fajr Qur'an, Imam al-Shafi'i did not read the Qunut. And when he was asked Imam al-Shafi'i, "This is your opinion, you differ with the Hanafis, why did you read Qunut this morning?" His answer was, "I am ashamed to read Qunut in the presence of such a great man who was not of that opinion." To show respect and adab and ihtiram to Abu Hanifa, this was the only reason he did not read Qunut. We talk about Abu Hanifa receiving respect. This was the respect that he gave to Imam Malik. Ashib ibn Abdul Aziz reports that I saw with my eyes Abu Hanifa sitting before Imam Malik as a child sits before his father. And you know what? Imam Malik at the time was only 13 years of age. And Abu Hanifa was sitting before Malik as a child sits before his father. This was the respect Abu Hanifa gave to him. Such was the respect that Malik gave to Abu Hanifa, that when Malik was questioned, "Have you ever seen Abu Hanifa?" he responded, "Yeah, I have seen a man who Allah had blessed with such intellect and power of analysis, that if that man wanted to prove that this pillar is made out of gold, Allah had blessed him with so much knowledge that he would be able to prove it to you that this pillar is made out of gold. So, if the founders of these madhabs, who differed with one another in many aspects in fiqh, Islamic jurisprudence, if they could live with one another and they could respect one another, then where does the Tom, Dick and Harry who possesses jat when it comes to knowledge, find this to be a divider? Allah give us the tawfiq to understand. There's a question with regards to a person whose father is very unhappy with him. How can he make his father happy? First of all, for our youngsters, it is very, very important that we understand the importance of our mother and father in this day and age. Living in societies where the Simpson type culture is rife, in which we are encouraged to become independent, though there's nothing wrong with being independent as long as it's within its limits. And in a society where rebelling against one's elders and one's mother and father is encouraged, we need to remember that we are Muslims. And in every society that we live in, we will take all that is good. And that coincides with the Quran and the Sunnah of Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we will refrain from everything that is evil. And what we class as evil is anything, though it may be right in society and accepted as good, we regard as evil everything that goes against the teachings of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And in this day and age, though this is very rife, we must remember that this is one thing which is evil. Not just evil, it is one of the major sins of Islam. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in one hadith has mentioned, أَلَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِأَكْبَرِ الْكَبَائِرِ. O people, shall I not inform you of the biggest sin? Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam thereafter mentioned al-ishraku billah. That the biggest sin is to associate partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And thereafter Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned uquq al-walidain. That the next big sin after associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is disrespecting one's mother and father. And if you look at the Quran, if you open the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you ponder over the verses, you will come to this conclusion. Wherever in the Quran you will find the mention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wherever. Thereafter, in the Quran, you will find the mention of your mother and father. Wherever in the Quran you find the mention of the rights of Allah, immediately thereafter you will find the mention of the rights of your mother and father. Now open the book of Allah. And the verse that comes to mind. لا تعبدون إلا الله وبالوالدين إحسانا. Do not worship anyone but Allah. وبالوالدين إحسانا. And thereafter Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala وبالوالدين إحسانا, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do good to your mother and father. And this is in Surah Baqarah. Don't hold me to it, it's not. Another verse of the Quran. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهِ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Worship Allah. Do not associate partners with Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. If you look at the theme of the Quran, wherever Allah is mentioned, the rights of Allah are mentioned, thereafter you will find the rights of your mother and father. أُتْلُ مَا حَرَّمَ عَلَيْكُمْ أَلَّا تُشْرِكُوا بِاللَّهِ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. A verse like this, and again. أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ. Another verse of the Quran. Be grateful to me. وَلِوَالِدَيْكَ. Be grateful to your mother and father. And you will find hundreds of verses like this, where Allah is mentioned and thereafter your mother and father is mentioned. Now from this, you can see the status of your mother and father in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will not find anything else in the Quran like this, in which you find the rights of Allah and you find the rights of your mother and father. You will not find anything like this other than this. From this we can see the status of one's mother and father. But if you take it further and look at the hadith of Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you will find رضا الرب في رضا الوالد وسخط الرب في سخط الوالد. That the pleasure of Allah lies in the pleasure of your mother and father. And the displeasure of Allah lies in the displeasure of your mother and father. Meaning, if you want to know whether Allah is pleased with you, then look at your mother and father. If your mother and father are pleased with you, then hopefully Allah is pleased with you. And if your mother and father are not pleased with you, then think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not pleased with you. Balki, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam goes a step further and says, كل الذنوب يغفر الله منها ما شاء إلا حقوق الوالدين فإنه يعجل لصاحبه في الحياة قبل الممات. That every sin that a human commits, out of those sins Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than shirk will forgive whatever He wants. There's one sin that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not forgive, that Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إلا حقوق الوالدين, and that is to disrespect one's mother and father. But Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in this hadith continues, that is one sin. Any other sin, you commit adultery,